this amazing 2026-2026 season, which you can see on this fantastic 3D, three-dimensional calendar designed in the Scarlet Ferrari color that can withstand any earthquake of amazing racing that this new Formula 1 2026-2026 provides. And in this first spring reaction, obviously there will be 5 more, 6 in total this season for the 6 sprints. We will tell you everything about this race, which really saw us come closest to the race victory since we won, or any type of victory we should say. Obviously it's still only sprint at the end of the day. Since we won here with Lewis Hamilton by over 6 seconds exactly 12 months ago. So we will tell you everything about it. I'm sure you've also seen my amazing sprint exploits over here as I really push my Scuderia Ferrari to the limit to win my second sprint in China, and obviously the 7th overall. But this is of course about the real Formula 1. I have to say that we might have just nicked it, obviously, to be 6/10 behind Russell right at the finishing line is actually very disappointing, as we were really looking forward to the victory. And I believe with a better teamwork and maybe better performance, we usually don't say it, but really from Charles Leclerc, we could have delivered over here a great victory, which would also we are still leading the sprint championship, even though Formula 1 doesn't actually track it, the sprint Constructors Championship, because of course we scored amazing 13 points and Mercedes-Benz obviously over here only scoring 12, so we've outscored the Mercedes-Benz, so that's definitely a good step forward, I would say. Over here in Australia we finished 3rd and 4th, 2nd and 3rd. It's gonna be 1 and 2, of course, the race proper, right? We definitely hope so. So on the Scuderia Red Retina iMac we will show you the overall standings, and of course the race results, and then we will take a look at the overall standings in the drivers and constructors tables, so that you guys know exactly how well we are racing. And of course using this very special edition only for the Chinese Grand Prix, but kind of that new fashion, that white kind of the Scuderia Retina Polo over here. Definitely let me know how do you like this Scarlet Polo. But yeah, let's get down to it. So obviously there's not much to do in terms of the free practice. So in free practice 1, 5th and 6th, that was actually a little bit disappointing. We were quite far off from the Mercedes-Benz, but we were actually trying that new rear wing, right? So that's very important over here, because that rear wing can rotate all around, and you could see that Lewis Hamilton was especially struggling to really slow down the car under the braking when the rear wing would be closing. So we haven't used it in a race, and I think definitely it would help us to especially defend the position better, because qualifying it was again Mercedes is 1-2, but at least the distance was only 0.6 of a second, and that's a time difference that I think we can definitely close down. 0.8 from Melbourne, 0.6 over here. Very soon looks like for Miami we would be on pole position. But of course we hope we won't have to wait that long. So with Russell again looking up the pole position championship leader, Andrea Kimi Antonelli right next to him, and then having actually Norris 3rd, Hamilton 4th and 6th. For Leclerc obviously we were then sandwiched by Norris and Piastri, who qualified 3rd and 5th. We knew that the way the grid works in China is that the first drivers is actually on the racing line, but it's the outside line, right? So if you get a good launch, you can really send it down the middle. And of course, with our great launches, we were really looking forward to the start, to see obviously, our Ferrari plummet to the 1 and 2, or definitely to the lead of the race. What happened? Just like in Australia, we made it. Oh yeah. So, again, glorious, late morning, almost noon over here, in the Far East. Obviously, we're running the same time as Shanghai, and yeah, it's pretty much a lovely days. Thankfully, big change. So good to really see how the cars would react to the track over here. So feels more like a proper racing. And yeah, once the red lights went out, everybody's pretty much started on the medium. I think only Hajar for the Racing Bulls brave the elements with the red tire, the soft tire. Some drivers like Bortoleto, I think he tried the hard tire, but or also Carlos Sainz, which actually maybe was a better strategy, because you could see what happened in the race. There was a lot of action, but obviously the tire wear is a serious issue. You could also see it in our sprint race when basically you get to lap 15 and you don't have that many tires left, right? I mean, you are still able to do decent times, but definitely new rubber over here, can help you, to improve significantly your overall, lap time. So Russell was leading into turn 1, but Hamilton got a great launch. So did Leclerc. Antonelli is spinning down to the 10th place, and obviously having the inside, as I described on a grid, that meant that Hamilton was able to get Norris. This is one of the shortest run-ups you can see, for example, on that old shiny calendar or this fantastic new calendar. The start-finish straight, obviously, the checker, the finishing line where the checkered flag is then, flown. It is actually kind of right in the middle, but when you start, you pretty much take over half of the straight, for the starting grid. So it was always gonna be difficult, but then you have that wide turn 1, which pretty much goes almost 270 degrees. So there are various racing lines, and obviously Hamilton going on the inside, and Ferrari, I think, definitely being by far the strongest cars, in the corners. Hamilton did a great job to slot in second, and then over to Russell, on the same lap, heading into these two 90-degree corners. That's one of my overtakes, actually. If you definitely go back to some of the races I've done in China, it's definitely possible. If you can hang out, behind the guy, pretty much, going through the left, right, the fast sequence of the corners leading to, I believe there are the turns 9 and 10, you are able to simply position the car, and it's kind of like a checkmate. The guy simply has nowhere to go. So that was a great move, and Hamilton was leading. Leclerc also very quickly dispatched, both McLarens, obviously with Antonelli. That was an easy work. So we were 1 and 3, just like in Australia. But this time, Leclerc was a little bit closer, and here you could see, that it really became a tactical battle, and Hamilton did a great job over here fighting Russell. Obviously, Russell then said, in the interview that he was sure that he was able to overtake Hamilton, but was he able to actually stay ahead? The key over here is that we cannot let Russell run away, and the key is actually the second Ferrari driver, because if we always going to be 1 and 3rd, that is different from being 1 and 2, because you could notice when, for example, Mercedes overtook, we can always overtake them back, right? It's clear that on a straight, Mercedes at the moment has a bit more power, but it will change from June once we go to Barcelona, one of our favorite cities. Then Mercedes cannot run their compression ratios, very, very hot. I think it's like 18-1 instead of the 16-1, which is mandated by the rules. So we expect them to actually get slower. So here it's very, very important that we try to beat them at as many races as possible. But when they are running up behind you and you have that long straight, it is super difficult, to defend, especially when you run out of the battery before the braking zone. When the guy, who has the more battery, who has the overtake, when you within just 1 second behind the guy, he can definitely make it. And that's what happened. But it's a fantastic fight. The Formula One is so much fun. We were again right on the edge of our seats. We couldn't even have our early our basically early lunch. And what happened was with Leclerc, just like Hamilton in Australia, he was the key, because what he did, and he said it, in obviously the post debrief, in his reaction to the sprint, that he was actually, holding back a little bit. He did not want, to challenge Russell when he was second, or Hamilton when he was second, but especially Russell when Russell was second. Leclerc, I believe, had opportunities, use that overtake button, overtake Russell. Then we have Ferrari 1-2, and then you tussling in with Russell, but also if, as Charles, as the Monegasque Prince, you really, feel you can take on the 7-time champion Hamilton, who's mega around this track once again, and who, of course, won last year, the sprint, then you can overtake him, and then Hamilton would be fighting with Russell, and you can build up the gap. And if you can build up 2, 3, 4, I would say 3 to 5 seconds, you have a fantastic chance to win. Because again, in terms of the race stream, I would say there were only 2 or 3 tenths, kind of like what you had in the sprint qualifying with the 1 and 2, right? When we are on the medium, I wouldn't say that there's so much in terms of the pace, and that was the key, right? So what happened was that you had this fantastic battle, but not once Leclerc, despite running within 1 second, so he can get for the whole lap about half of the megajoules extra energy. That overtake button is not being able to challenge Russell. But then, George overtook Lewis and, built up a lead of just about 1.0, 1.1 seconds, and then Leclerc attacked Hamilton. That's one thing that we should really be fighting with each other. And of course, once they started fighting, Russell built up the lead of about 3 to 4 seconds, and it looked like the race was done. obviously then Leclerc was in front of the Lewis, for a while. Thankfully, Antonelli smacked into Hajar, on that opening lap, because again, he was just very late on the brake, so he's got a 10-second penalty. So even though he started, he actually caught us up and overtook us right before, the key moment of the race happened. We knew that he had a 10-second penalty, so we were set for second and third. But again, Leclerc, despite the fact that he kept up the tires alive, there was not much he could do. He was pretty much doing the same times like Russell. So this strategy didn't work, but yeah, again, it was a lot of fun, and I just wish that, Leclerc attacked, especially when he had a chance, when Russell was there, because if we are 1 and 2, that hasn't happened yet, but I'm sure it will happen during the Grand Prix, then Mercedes is beatable and will be beatable and will be beaten by Scuderia Ferrari, as we are, in an amazing title fight again, and it's great to see. And then of course, once, that key moment happened, right, around lap 13, when Hülkenberg, from Audi just lost power and he had to park it, just outside of the main straight, and that's kind of dangerous, right, because you're approaching it pretty much at the full speed that the cars can allow in 2026. So yeah, there was actually a safety car, not a virtual, but a safety car. And surprisingly, you can see that Mercedes immediately stopped Russell, so everybody stopped. We had to double stack, obviously. Antonelli had to serve the penalty, so he was now out of it, but Norris was kind of that cork right in the middle between Leclerc and of course Hamilton. And on the soft tires, I was like, okay, this is gonna be really great, because Leclerc will be able, the overtake is enabled right from the time, the safety car peels into the pits. So we had basically, I believe 2 racing actions. So at the end of lap 17, Leclerc was right behind Russell, exiting the hairpin. We know, I show it to you on a hot lap. You can easily get a wheel spin there. Leclerc got a big wheel spin, and pretty much that was the win gone, because then, he was about 1.2, 1.3 seconds behind, and he was actually able, to catch up with Russell, but he basically ran out of the laps. If he didn't have such a massive wheel spin over here, which almost cost him the place to Norris, yeah, he would be able to attack Russell and win his first ever sprint, but, sadly made a rather rookie mistake. Hamilton just breezed by Norris. That was second and third, but I believe, Leclerc over here, played a key role, not that well, but overall, this is a great result, and this is how the race finished. So on the Scuderia Red Retina iMac, let me turn it around over here. So you can see it looks very interesting, doesn't it? And yeah, we have George Russell obviously winning, so congratulations to him, winning his second sprint by only by 6/10, from Leclerc, who gave his all. It was a great progress from the 6th place. But then again, we expected more. Lewis Hamilton definitely visibly bit upset, finishing third when he was leading the race, even though he started fourth. I think definitely it's very encouraging that both Ferrari drivers are very fast, able to fight with the Mercedes, but again, we cannot let Russell especially or Antonelli run away. For then the reigning champion Lando Norris, he finished there. Andrea Kimi Antonelli finished 5th. Oscar Piastri then finished 6th. So clearly, the top 3 teams, but it's really just the top 2 teams. And here, this is the strategy of Liam Lawson Racing Bulls, right? So in the end, he is the one who did not change the tires, who did not dive into the pits. And I was wondering, why did we really need to change the tires, right? I know that's because Russell went into the pits, but he was only leading by a few seconds, so we would definitely be able to overtake him. Having a 1-2, perhaps we would be able, just like obviously Lawson over here demonstrated, same for Berman, who finished 8th, that actually it was simply possible to hold on, to the position. But again, I didn't know the exact tire wear, but I was wondering why not, for example, have at least one of the cars, split the strategy, because we kind of copied Mercedes, and it did almost work. I can understand the logic, because again, being right behind them, I would say it was a better strategy to stop if Russell stopped. But again, the track position sometimes, even now, is still the key, right? And then, it's so satisfying to see 9 Verstappen for Red Bull. Definitely deserves bad results, and 10 then Esteban Ocon. So over here, that would also be your sprint championship table. And here is how it looks like in the 2026 Drivers' Championship. So George Russell, leading with 33 points, and Andrea Kimi Antonelli, due to the second place he's gotten in Australia, he is second, 22 points. Charles Leclerc equal on the points, 22, and of course, all he needs to do is Mercedes win, the race, which will be difficult for him, and which the victory could also go to Lewis Hamilton, who is 4th on 18 points. We have a chance to overtake Russell. Hey, maybe Mercedes will blow up. I mean, they do already use the second battery, so hopefully the reliability will be good for us. Hopefully we will get a better strategy. I think definitely lots of things are possible, and if that happens, we could actually even see Ferrari, leading the Drivers' Championship. 5th, Lando Norris, McLaren, 15 points, probably knows he's not going to be champion for a long time. 6th is still Max Verstappen, Red Bull, 8 points over there. And over here, as the table opens up with 7, Oliver Behrman has doing splendid job on 7 points. 8th is then Liam Loss, Arvid Lindblad, for Racing Bulls, 6 points. 9 is then Oscar Piastri, who's gotten his first points for McLaren, 3 points. He wants to put back, the really terrible mistake he made in his home race in Australia behind him. 10, Gabriel Bortoleto, Audi, 2 points. 11 is then Liam Lawson, Racing Bulls, 2 points. And 12 is then Pierre Gasly, Alpine, 1 point. Other drivers didn't get the points, but they are classified as follows. So 13 is then over here Esteban Ocon has 0 points. 14 is then, and that should be indeed Alexander Albon, Williams, 0 points. Then we have 15, Franco Colapinto, Alpine, 0 points. 16, Carlos Sainz, back to his usual spot, Williams, 0 points. 17, we then have surprisingly Sergio Perez for Cadillac, 0 points. 18 is then Isaac Hadjar, Red Bull, again, got hit, 0 points, but he's showing promising speed. 19, Nico Hülkenberg, Audi, 0 points. And then we have over here 20th, Fernando Alonso, Aston Martin, 0 points. 21st, Valtteri Bottas, Cadillac, 0 points. 22nd is then Lance Stroll, and not here on the table. I wonder why that is for Aston Martin, 0 points. So this is how the table looks like. And let's take a look at our Constructors Championship. So Mercedes leading with 55 points, but of course Scuderia Ferrari, we are on 40 points right behind. All we need to do is finally, win the race over here, just like I am winning, a mega here in China, of course, 40 points. And you can see clear fight between Mercedes and Scuderia Ferrari. McLaren with 18 points, visibly behind. You can see in points, 4th is Red Bull Racing, 8 points, but look at this. 5th Haas, 7 points, and then once the table opens up, 6th are Racing Bulls, 6 points. That would be interesting if Racing Bulls would actually be quicker than Red Bull. 7 Audi, 2 points, and 8 is Alpine, 1 point, and 9 Williams still on 0 points. Still to get off the mark is 10 Cadillac, 0 points, and 11 Aston Martin, 0 points. So you see the Constructors Championship, how it looks like. And yeah, again, we cannot wait for the qualifying later on today. And of course, for the race proper, we will be going for our 60th victory overall, the 4th here, in China, and Scuderia Ferrari, a 5-star performance will yield us our 5th victory over here, to propel us to the lead of both of the tables. And of course we want to dethrone Antonelli and Russell, who are currently leading. In terms of the Sprint Championship, this is the table, and I think Formula One should definitely consider the Sprint Championship, because the sprints are so exciting. And imagine that you could get a trophy, maybe some big prize like $1 or more million for the driver, or definitely for the team, and so on. That would be even better. I run as like that as well. I'm also leading the Sprint Championship, as and as Scuderia Ferrari, 1 point ahead of Mercedes. Hey, that's all we want to see, right? Of course. So over here, I hope you enjoyed this great race reaction that we prepared for you in our home sweet home. And yeah, the racing continues. So you guys definitely stay tuned over here. Our new handsome haircut, our new fashion works really well in the Far East. And we cannot wait to see what happens as we obviously try to out-qualify Mercedes-Benz, or at least be 3rd and 4th, so we can be 1 and 2 into the turn 1. And then it's race on, isn't it? We are absolutely loving Formula 1 in 2026. Let me know how you're loving it. This was Jan, the Smiling Sun Champion. Ferrari's biggest fan, Ferrari's most exciting fan, and Ferrari's fastest driver over here, sprinting to the glory, to the championships. And now it's time for the Grand Prix proper. So let's fine tune, dial up these setups, and let's go for it. And let's see, I just want to say that Michael Schumacher still holds the record over here from 2004 for 22 years. That fastest lap hasn't been broken. I'm sure it's gonna stay this way, isn't it? In the race proper, Leclerc did 134, Michael did 132.2, Leclerc 134.7. So definitely it will stay there. True legend, and this is what we love, right? Actually, the greatest thing about the Shanghai International Circuit is that it's relatively unchanged. So you can really see, which cars are the most dominant cars. F2004, it will be F26 very soon, right? That's right! We love racing! We love Formula 1! We love Ferrari!